What's up, guys? Today we've got the iPhone 15 Pro Max compared to the iPhone 11. Now, when I was picking this phone up, the iPhone 11 is the phone that most people had in the Apple Store that they were actually upgrading from, just looking at, people's phones. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Is this worth the upgrade? I think you guys would be surprised how good the iPhone 11 still is. You can find these fairly cheap these days in the used refurbished marketplace, around $250. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, let's start off with the hardware. So the thing that I really like about the iPhone 11 is that it still looks like a fairly modern phone, being released in 2019. It still looks really good. It pretty much looks like if I put an iPhone, 14 or 15, just the standard one, it still looks really good. The only thing is, the cameras are positioned a little differently, but it still looks great. That's one of the things that I really like about this phone, being an older iPhone. On the sides, it does have the metal frame, of course, and then it's glossy on the back here. And you also have the new titanium on the 15 Pro Max. And it definitely makes the phone feel lighter, so that's really cool. But overall, I do like the 11 because it doesn't pick up the sort of like grease, or at least on this model, it doesn't pick up the fingerprints or the oils from your fingers and stuff like that. You can rarely see it, which is something I really like. And you definitely will see like the oil and fingerprint smudges on this phone for sure. Now, what's really nice about the 15 Pro Max is that it has the matte finish on here, and then you have this sort of glossy finish on the 11. But depending on which color you get, you really can't see like fingerprints, especially on this purple color. So the 15 is IP68, dust and water resistant, and so is the 11. Also, another hardware difference that you will notice is that Apple got rid of the mute vibration switch here. So now you have the action button on here. Basically, the action button, you can assign it to pretty much open any application, and you can assign it to open a flashlight and stuff like that. So essentially gives you a little bit more functionality. But as far as the hardware, I think the iPhone 11 still looks great. You also have now the USB Type-C on here as well too, which is just really, really convenient now that they moved away from their previous, charging method. All right, so let's talk about the displays. So the 11 does have a 6.1-inch display. It's IPS LCD. It's 625 for the PPI. It's 720p 326 for the PPI, and it has the bigger notch on here, or the old school notch. And the 15 Pro Max has the LTPO XDR OLED display. It's 120 Hz. It has HDR10. Gets 2000 nits peak brightness. This one is 6.7 inches. It's 1290 by 2796 and 460 for the PPI. Basically, what you will notice first is obviously the new dynamic island. Basically, the dynamic island is somewhat useful depending on what apps actually take advantage of it. Like Uber, it'll sort of show you a little countdown when the Uber's coming or something like that. But not a lot of applications support it, so it's not super useful, but it does look a little bit more modern than the old, notch. Alright, so as far as color, it's an IPS panel on the 11, so the 15 Pro's Max display is just much better as far as color and resolution. It's OLED, and the second thing you'll notice is the 120 Hz. You will definitely notice it's just an overall smoother display when scrolling and swiping on this thing. So that's probably the biggest thing that will stand out is the 120 Hz, the overall screen design, and then you also have, it's just way brighter outdoors. So if you're outdoors in direct sunlight on the 15 Pro Max, you'll notice it's just way brighter. So you'll be able to see better if you're like at a beach or something like that. Now let's talk about these specs a little bit more. So on the 15, you do have the Apple A17 chip on here, and then on the 11 you have the Apple A13 chip on here. The 11 has the base storage of 64 gigs and 4 gigs of RAM. That is what this model is. And the base on the 15, it does have 256 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM. So you can see with the Geekbench scores here, the single core, you can see just a big difference here. and the multi-core score is a massive difference here. Now, how does that translate into the real world use? Basically, I think the iPhone 11 is still really fast, kind of surprisingly fast. Just launching applications, it's not like it's super slow and laggy. So that's one thing that, when you're looking at benchmarks and stuff for the average person, they're not going to be doing, super intensive stuff on their phone. So it's almost no difference unless you're like a power user. Even when it comes to gaming, the iPhone 11 is still pretty good, and I'll show you guys with PUBG. But you guys can see a pretty minimal speed difference here when it comes to the overall just swiping and stuff. The biggest thing you'll notice with speed, honestly, is the 120 hertz. As far as speed, unless you're a power user and you're going to be doing a lot of editing, stuff like that, intensive applications, intense gaming, then yeah, it's definitely worth it. But like I said, the 11 is still actually pretty fast. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the cameras. I want to show you guys these side-by-side stills because I thought it was pretty interesting to see what you guys thought. Now, obviously, you're going to have a better camera on the 15 Pro Max, but how much better is it? Because I was looking at the side-by-side. In some photos, I was like, man, the 11 still holds up pretty well. All right, so let's go over these specs. So the 15 Pro Max, it does have the 3 cameras, 48 megapixel standard, so you get, better detail when cropping in. 12 megapixel periscope telephoto, 12 megapixel ultra wide. You also have 4K 60 video, and then a 12 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K 60. Now, some of the new things that you'll notice with the overall camera is that you can switch between 28, 35, and then 24. There's a macro mode. There's a cinematic mode on here as well too. And then you can obviously use the Apple ProRes, and you can take those higher quality photos and videos as well too. Now with the iPhone 11, you have a 12 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It also shoots in 4K 60 and it has a 12 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K 60 as well. Obviously you don't have the telephoto lens on here. I have the 11 Pro that we'll probably go over, but you don't have like the cinematic mode and the macro mode. So that's the things that you'll be getting with the 15 Pro. So I'll go ahead and show you guys these side-by-side stills. Let me know what you guys think. These speakers at max volume. So as you guys can hear, there's much more bass on the 15 Pro Max. It's just overall louder, fuller sound. Definitely a upgrade here in the speaker department. Both of these phones have Face ID and they pretty much work the same. I don't think they're any different. They're both open, fairly the same. Alright, so lastly, I want to talk about the battery situation because this is a pretty nice upgrade actually. So on the 15 Pro Max, you have a 4,422 milliamp hour battery. It has wireless charging and you also have reverse wired charging. And then you also have the MagSafe charging on here as well, which is very nice. The battery life lasts easily a day and a half. It's very good battery life. On the iPhone 11, I have about 85% battery health on this one. Now, typically with the 11, I can get pretty close to 6 hours of screen on time, so it's not anything too crazy. It has a 3,110 milliamp hour battery. You also have wireless charging on here, and of course no MagSafe. So basically the battery experience, you will notice that will be the biggest thing. So if you're somebody that really wants the best battery life, the iPhone 15 Pro Max is really good with battery life, I noticed. So definitely, I think that's definitely a good upgrade in that department. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with the iPhone 11. Looking at the photos, the overall speed of the device, even the design of this device is still really good. So let me know, what do you guys think? Do you guys think it is upgrade worthy? Let me know and I'll catch you guys in the next one.